Welcome back to the weekly edit. This week I'm going to be editing one of my images in DxO's PhotoLab 7. Also a program I really enjoy using. It's quite different than your Adobe Photoshop Lightroom or Capture One in that it's got just quite a different tool set. It's also located in different places. Excuse my voice, I'm a little bit on the sick side. Not very sick, just a little bit. Anyway, so let's not waste any more time. I am already struggling to keep the time of my videos down. So I'm going to jump into the edit and we'll take it from there. Let's go. Okay, so I have one of my landscape images open here in DxO PhotoLab 7. One of the nice things about PhotoLab is it doesn't work from a catalog, so you don't have to import images. You can just navigate straight to the folder on your hard drive and begin to edit. It's got proprietary sidecar files where it stores the edits and a very tiny bit of a catalog somewhere on the computer, but it's very, very lightweight. So that's quite nice. You don't have to do any importing, etc, etc. Apologies again for my voice. So the reason I have three images or three versions of the image here is I've got the original raw file, then I have what's going to be the color edit and what's going to be the black and white edit, as you may have guessed if you followed along on previous weekly edits. So let's just open up the original raw file quickly by double click on it, or I can just go to the Customize tab. Well, actually, before I get ahead of myself, so in the library module, you can double click on the little bar at the top here, or you can just drag it down to enlarge the image. If you drag it up a little bit, hey, come on, so double click on it, so from the top you can actually drag it down and it's almost like a film strip, which is quite nice. So this is the original raw file. It was captured on a Nikon D810, so finally getting to the big boy or adult cameras or professional cameras. And it was captured back in South Africa at a little coastal village called Arniston, where I was doing some recceing, some exploratory photographing for a workshop that happened later in that year. Anyway, so this is the original raw file, shot at 24mm, f8, ISO 100 and a 6-second exposure. I think I did have a neutral density filter on the front, perhaps. Then, so this is the raw file without any adjustments. What DxO does, if we go to the color edit, it automatically applies some default edits to imported images, which you can specify in the preferences. So let's just close that down and we'll jump into the color edit. So this is a raw file. I have not done anything to it, but you can see there are some edits that have been applied. So if we go to the compare, so the before, after, before, so that's the raw file we viewed just now, and that is the raw file with some default automatic adjustments applied from PhotoLab. It's actually, what I find great about this is it actually gives you a great starting point, and again, like I mentioned in Capture One last week, it means I actually have to do less to my images when I edit them versus something like Lightroom or what did I do as well, on One Photo Raw. So what I normally do is so that's the before, that's the basic edits applied. I just leave it like that. I do just have a quick squiz at the compare just to get an idea of what it's done. A nice thing, it's got a little toggle switch top right here. If you click that, it shows all active modules or corrections applied, and you can toggle them on and off. I'll quickly do that. So before I carry on with jumping straight into the edit, as always with the weekly edit, quickly want to talk about my philosophy, or my editing philosophy, which is to have a vision of where I want to take this image before I actually start editing in the program itself. Because without a vision of where I want to end up with the edit, I'll basically just be dragging sliders back and forth and not really having a clear direction of how I want to edit my image. So I'll waste time and won't be very productive or fruitful edit. So, like I mentioned, this was a slightly longer exposure, which blurred the ocean, and when I was on site and now looking at the image on the computer, my vision for this edit is to, if I can use the mouse here as an indicator, if you look at the image, is to basically bring out details in the darker areas here on the rock as it leads into the ocean here, to enhance a little bit the highlights in these small pools on this outcrop, and then to bring out those colors and details in the sky. I'm not too concerned about details and stuff in the ocean here because it was a longer exposure, and yeah, that's so that's not really that relevant. And then I think I'll probably have a look at these colors also in the green sea moss or sea growth, sea plants. Excuse my terminology. Yeah, so that's basically my vision. So, and I'll do a bit of cropping as well. So now that I know where I want to take this image, we can start the edit. Okay, so first off, what we have here, there's an exposure module, or in the light module here, yeah, so in the light module, so we have the light module, the color module, the details module. Just hover over that, see, details, perspective correction, and effects. I'll start off in the lights module. So you can see here DxO has already applied the Smart Lighting module. That's pretty much like a how can I say, like a dynamic range tool. It basically brings down the highlights and brings up the shadows. Let me deactivate it quickly. And you can see before and after, and you can also set the intensity if we drag that up. And it actually, I mean, in my opinion, it really does a very good job. And even though I'm not familiar with it from other programs, I actually do use it very often most of the time in PhotoLab. One thing I do is I don't use the uniform option. I go spot weighted, and then it's got a little tool here that you can drag over a certain area. So you can either go over the highlights and a bit of the ocean like that, and it'll adapt. Or what I like to do, you can choose a few more areas. So I'm going to go in the shadows here as well, maybe a little bit in the darker area as well. Okay, so now it's got 3 areas sampled. We'll close the tool down, and now if we go in the history, let's see quickly. So that was the original Smart Lighting, and with our customized Smart Lighting. Not a massive difference, but just that little bit of extra help in the shadows and the highlights. And now moving on to the selective tone tool. So that's your traditional highlights, midtone, shadows. So Capture One has also done something for me there. Let's toggle that off. Yeah, not bad. I might bring down the highlights just a tad more, just like that. I'll open up the shadows a little bit more, bring down the blacks a little bit. And then in Capture One, the histogram is on the left here, and it has shadow and highlight warnings. So you can see currently no shadow, a little bit of shadow warnings down here. Shadows warning, anyway. And highlights where the sun is just rising up behind above the horizon, but that's to be expected. I mean, the sun is a pretty big ball of fire, so I'm not too concerned about that. Okay, then the ClearView Plus tool is basically like dehaze. When you toggle that off, you can see it just gives a little bit of additional contrast and takes a bit of the atmospheric haze away. Contrast, self-explanatory. The nice thing about this contrast tool is you have general contrast, micro and fine contrast. Toggle that off. Just a little bit of contrast added by Capture One. What I'm going to do, I'm going to head into 100% here, and as I zoom into 100%, you can really see the raw conversion, or the raw engine in DxO. I was going to say Capture One like I did last week, but in DxO is also like Capture One, absolutely phenomenal. I think if you zoom into the same 100% in Lightroom, it actually comparatively, it looks in Lightroom, it just looks like smudgy. It's not nearly as nice. Anyway, sorry, I was gonna add just a little bit of fine contrast for the fine details here. So bring that. I'm going to do that too much so we can see what it does. we need to zero that out. As you can see, just it's going to add maybe, and in DxO, really small adjustments make a big difference. So let's do that in history. So let's go 0. So overall you can't see too much, but if we zoom into 100%, you can see it just brings out a little bit of extra sharpness and macro contrast or fine contrast in those detailed areas there. Tone curve, yeah, I'm going to toggle that on. I want to add just a very tiny S-curve and take up the black point just a tad. Yeah, I just added a little bit of a contrast boost to the image. And then vignetting is like it's for the lens correction. So if I toggle that off, you can see the original lens vignetting comes back. Toggle that on, goes away. Based on DxO's massively extensive lens optics library, which they're very well known for. Okay, so currently we went from there to there, not by doing a hell of a lot, maybe by me blabbing on for too long, but DxO also has a very nice little before-after slider, like in on one and in Capture One. So that's before, that's after, and again, I haven't done a lot of editing. It's just out of the box looks really good. Okay, so then in terms of color, white balance is as shot. It's a little bit cool for me. I want to warm it up a tad. The one thing DxO doesn't have, as far as I'm aware, please drop a comment down below if I missed it or if you know more. It doesn't have an auto white balance. You can select an area in the image, for it to adjust the white balance, but that's not what I want to do. So I'm going to go back. You can select the different white balance options here that you normally can if you shot in RAW, but to my eye it's a little bit cool, so I'm just gonna incrementally take the warmth up. See, now we have a nice little warmth in these highlights and in the sky, and the shadows is edging more towards neutral, which I I prefer for this image. So if we toggle that off, you can see overall a bit of a cooler image. Toggle that back on. Overall it's just warmed up, and it's just bringing a nice bit of warmth to the highlights. Color space, white, gamut, blah, blah, yeah, all good. Then going to color black and white rendering. So let's just have a read there actually while we're here. If you shoot your images with color checker for absolute color accuracy, which I obviously didn't do on site next to the Coastline, DxO PhotoLab lets you create your custom color profile right inside the application. Okay, well that didn't help much. So my thinking here is I'm going to leave DxO's generic rendering. You can change it to things like from the camera body itself, so from, well, I was going to say from Nikon, picked that up as a Canon. It was a Nikon D810, man, come on. So let's search for that quickly. Nikon, where's the D810? Oh, there. Okay, so that versus, I don't know what you think, but in my opinion the DxO's generic rendering has a lot more detail in the sky and brings out the shadows a bit more. So I generally leave that alone, which was my original point. You can do some LUT, apply some color grading via LUTs. I'm going to stay away from that. I'm going to edit this landscape image true to life when I was standing there. You can do some toning, so you can either toggle that on, some toning, it's called simple toning, which is basically like a color filter which you apply to the whole image. I'm going to do some split toning. It automatically applies it at 100%. Sorry, I think I realize I'm talking a bit fast because I'm trying to keep the time down. Apologies for that. So I'm going to slow it down ever so slightly, also so that I can do a better job with the editing. Anyway, so split toning, like in Lightroom, you have highlights, shadows. Traditionally in Lightroom now you have the color grading module with highlights, shadows and midtones, the color wheels. So here, the highlights I want to warm up a little bit, so I'm going to stay on the sepia. I like the warmth of it there. And then for the shadows, which we see here, I'm actually just going to stand on the default. You can change it to something like Selenium, which is a bit less cool, but. And then intensity I'm going to take down to 0, so that you see there, and then one by one I'm going to raise the intensity for the highlights, which you want to warm up. So if we keep an eye up here, very nice. And again, I'm only at 30% or 30 points, which I'm assuming it's percent, so I'm only at 30%. Take that back down maybe to about 25. I like round numbers, or not round, yeah, like, how do you say? Not 26, I want to do 25. Then for the shadows, take it up too much, see what that does. Okay, so I'm just gonna probably just gonna take this up to about 10 or so. There we go. And if we toggle that on and off, oh, it's very nice in the highlights actually. I really like that. And again, if we go quickly to original raw, edited version so far. And again, I've done nothing complicated, just going through the modules one by one. So the HSL module in DxO, also very, very powerful, but this is going to be a global adjustment, and I want to use it on the green plant life here, bottom left of frame. So I'm going to do that in inside a mask or a localized adjustment a bit later. So that I'm going to leave alone. Channel mixer, I'm going to leave alone as well. Soft proofing, I'm not doing any printing at the moment. So then moving on to details. Now here this module, the DxO denoising technologies, is basically the module that they've gone and separated out into DxO Pure Raw, that you can buy separately. But if you have PhotoLab, it's built in. And you have more control. Downside is it takes a bit more time to actually apply it, because with Pure Raw you can just process or batch process images, and you also don't have a full image preview. You only have a little preview in the window here, which is hopefully something they'll fix in a future release. So if we zoom in again, 200%, rendered. Okay, I mean, just with the normal raw conversion, it's not a hell of a lot, and it's also given it's a Nikon D810 shot at 100 ISO, so it's a 30.5 or 36 megapixel full frame camera, so there's not going to be a lot of noise. But if we keep an eye on this little window here, let's there's some nice detail there. So let's take the magnifier tool. We wanted to have a look there. Now you can choose here between high quality, original prime in previous, and DeepPRIME. In previous versions you would have had in Pure Raw, and now we have DeepPRIME XD, so I'm going to click on that. It's going to take a moment to render. And now I don't know if you can see that, I'll zoom in a bit in the video as well, but I'm going to click on it and it's going to show the before, and I'm going to release the mouse and then it's going to show the after. So I'm going to click on it. So you can see there the original raw file, and there with Pure Raw or DeepPRIME XD applied. Good, yeah, I mean, not a mind-blowing difference, but still nice little bit of detail added there. So I'm going to leave that as is. You can adjust some sliders here. I'm going to leave those alone. One thing that DxO does have, and this is because of their optics modules, which they research, collect, and make available by testing actual camera and lens combinations in the lab, is lens softness correction. So it automatically knows that I shot on a Nikon D810 with the at 24. What lens was it? I think it was the Nikon the 16 to 35, which is a beautiful landscape lens. Actually, let's go back to the photo library quickly. Let's see if it tells us what lens was used. Yeah, Nikon 16 to 35 f4G. Very, very nice landscape lens. Anyway, moving on. So what was I talking about? Lens softness correction. So if you keep an eye here on all this lovely little rock and plant detail, all these fine details. So I'm going to toggle that off, and you can see immediately how soft it is. Now in a program like Lightroom, it would have corrected a little bit, and you can do something with sharpen. But if either you can get a better result in something like Lightroom if you process this image via pure raw first and then import it into Lightroom, or if you're in PhotoLab, all you need to do is just toggle this on and keep an eye out over here. I mean, that's impressive. That's impressive. I think if I could have this type of raw decoding in Lightroom for this for the quality of the raw decoding, and then the Lightroom for the simplistic or just very intuitive editing, that would be a win-win in my opinion. Anyway, moving swiftly along, chromatic aberration, part of lens correction, blah blah blah. Retouch, so this would be, you know, like if there were any blemishes. I don't think in the sky, I don't think I had any dust spots, but we can quickly go back to there and crank up ClearView, just a bit like the dehaze in Lightroom, just to bring out the lens spots. Pan around the sky here quickly. There's nothing obviously noticeable here. Then when we take it back to where it was at 10, then there's not going to be anything to retouch. And yeah, I mean, over here maybe these little white spots down here draws the eye, but I might actually just end up cropping that out. And then we have an unsharp mask, which is just additional sharpening, but again, this denoising technology, this DxO denoising and sharpening does enough in my opinion. But we can toggle it on for interest sake. So zooming to 100, there where the, have a look over here where the focus is. Did that do anything? Did anyone see anything? Let's crank that up, see. No, it does do something, it's more just like adds a bit of glow from brightness. Let's zoom out. I don't know, I can't see too much. Let's reset that. No, I'm going to leave it off. It doesn't have that much of a effect in my opinion. Moi and a red eye, obviously for portraits or faces. While I was talking about the retouch, it reminded me about the cropping. So a bit like Capture One, those type of tools in DxO PhotoLab is up here at the top. We have the move tool, the hand tool. We have the crop tool. We have the white balance picker. We have the horizon straightening, and then we have perspective correction for if you're doing buildings or if you want to do something like that. We have the clone or retouch tool, and then red eye most likely. Yes, and then what's that? Oh, miniature effect. That's actually, so there's, besides crop, some tools are duplicated from the side panel here. So, straighten the horizon quickly. So you click on the horizon straighten tool, and then I'm going to drag this line up to the horizon here. Just like that. Okay, looks good. I'm going to click apply. Slight horizon straightening. Then I can click straight on the crop tool. I can click close here to go out of the tool, and then I go to the crop tool, and it is down here. It's on the original aspect ratio, so that's good. So what I want to do here is I want the sun to be in the middle of the frame, so more or less where that little indicator is there. So I'm going to take this to the right until I see that, and also until about there, yeah. And also in the original image it was shot, it's a little bit wide. If you look on the left here, that's a bit of dead space interest wise in the image. It's not really that necessary, and I think it will be a stronger image visually if we remove some of that and just crop out a bit of the sky as well, even though I'm sad about losing the cloud a bit higher. So there we go, sun's more or less in the middle. I'm going to drag this down a little bit. The reason being is that I shot it like this because this part of the rock it draws the eye to the bottom right of frame, but then it actually leads the eye with this light that's falling onto the edge here into the frame, and then up to the sun and then out, and it's so it's a nice visual journey through the image. And we have this rock pools on the lower left third set, and that is moving to the top right third according to the rule of thirds. So for me, with this crop, visually it becomes much more of a stronger image. Okay, I'm not going to bore you too much more with that. And now immediately the eye focuses a lot more on what's going on in the image, rather than to be drawn to the bottom left where there was that space. So that is that, I think. Then in the, I'm going to tell me, geometry module, I'm not going to do anything there. And then in effects, so this is also something I largely leave alone, but you can do some things like watermarking. You can do the miniature effect. I'll toggle that on quickly. See, adds blur top and bottom for that classic miniature effect if you want. You can add some filters, warm, cold, different colors. You can add a bit of grain. I'm not going to add grain here. And interestingly, in DxO, vignetting is something I've got the what do you need from Nik Effects? You need the film module from Nik Effects to be able to do any sort of extensive vignetting in PhotoLab, which is a bit strange. So if you have that, Film Pack 6 Elite, sorry, there it goes, the Film Pack 6 Elite, which I have, then you can set the center point to a different part in the image. So let's just add a slight vignette so you can see that's coming in. So I'm going to overdo it so I can see where it is. I'm going to keep the transition soft. Excuse me, you can change the roundness. I'm going to take a little bit less oval. And then in terms of center, I'm going to take it up slightly, just to there. And I'm going to zero out the intensity, and then I'm going to drag it down there so slightly, what, -9, 10, like I mentioned, round numbers. There we go. And I'm going to close it or activate it again. Perfect. Then we can do blur, frame, texture. No thank you. And if you're into light leaks, you can add some light leaks. I'm mostly, the only thing I use here is the vignetting, and what I do in DxO now, since my Darktable weekly edit, it's got the frame module here. If you remember, in Darktable you can add, there's a shortcut for adding a white frame around a white border, or a frame around the image, just for that, be able to, how do you say, to calibrate the eye for the edit, or for the image, you know. So let me demonstrate that. So toggle that on. That adds a white border around the image. So now immediately you can get a better sense for how the image is looking color-wise compared to the pure white. So just looking at that, again, I'm going to go back here and I'm going to increase the midtones and the shadows a little bit. And are we going to do exposure? I generally stay away from, not stay away, I don't use it all that much actually, even though it's something you do quite by default in Lightroom. So if we do that, you have some presets. Just gonna, it's quite a strong adjustment. If you can see, just take it up 0.1. Okay. Quickly look at highlight clipping. No? Let's take it up a lot and see what happens. Why is it not? No idea what I did. Okay, anyway, moving on. Let's add the white frame again. Yeah, I think it looks a bit better. And also, if we go down to the history here to... This is where we started, with some basic edits applied, and then if we go to where we are now, let's quickly do it before after. That's the raw edit, the raw, sorry, and that's the edit now. I think we can actually just add a little bit of extra contrast to the other contrast slider, now that I'm looking at that. Okay, perfect, that's looking quite good in my opinion. Even the greens are standing out a bit more. I do want to go to the last module quickly, which is the local, sorry, not fixed, to local adjustments. There we go. I'm gonna toggle that on. Now I can add a control point, a control line, a graduated filter, and some brushes. I generally stick, I mean, you can do either. The control point, I know it from previous versions of PhotoLab, so well, actually no, getting beyond myself, getting ahead of myself. Close that. So the control point I would use if I want to, I will use in a minute when I adjust the highlights here, but because what I want to do first is adjust the greens here. So because they are at the bottom left of the image, I can actually do that via a graduated filter. So I'm going to drag that up from the bottom here, take that up a bit more, like so. Now I can apply any of these adjustments here to the area, the masked area, which is indicated in red. Like I mentioned a bit earlier, I'm going to go to the HSL, select the greens, and as soon as I start to make an adjustment, the red will go away. So I'm going to increase the saturation. And so if you ever keep an eye on the green little pieces of green plant growth, luminance, the brightness, I'm going to take it up quite a bit just so we can see the effect it has there. So I'm just going to take that up a tad, and because that lightens the color, I'm going to increase the saturation slightly, and then I'm going to take up the luminance once more. Okay, so let's deselect the filter and then have a look at the before after. So nice, so you can see this brings out those greens, very nice. And then I'm going to add, like I mentioned, last thing I want to do is increase the highlights here in these rock pools. So I'm going to, for that I'm going to use a control point. It's like a circular, what's it called, a radial filter in Lightroom. Click there, then you can adjust the size, and it automatically applies a mask based on where the control point is located. If it was on the dark area, it would select mostly dark. Light, so it selects the light areas. So I'm going to do there, keep it a bit smaller, and then I'm going to just add a few more. Oh, sorry, one back. I'm going to click there and a little bit there. Now if you are noticing that it's bleeding into the ocean, don't despair. What you can do is hold Option on a Mac, what could that be, Alt maybe on a PC, and then you see it changes to a little minus sign there, and then you can click on the areas that you want to protect. So you can see that just removes them from the mask, and it's quite good at automatically detecting those. So mostly selected these, so I'm going to increase that actually so it selects a bit more of that one. And because I've added the control points in sequence, theoretically it should now apply the adjustment to all of them. So highlights, yeah, it does, great. Okay, so just zero it out, start again, take the highlights up, exposure maybe a tad, okay, deselect that, toggle that off and on, before all the masking and after. Great, I think that's pretty much that for the color edit. So I'm just going to close the local adjustments window there, and then if we do a quick before after, that was before, raw file, and that was after. Yeah, so yeah, I think like I mentioned before, really not a hell of a lot of editing in PhotoLab necessary, because it does such a good job straight off the bat. I think what took up most of the time here was just my me talking too much. So that's the color edit. If you want to stick around for the black and white edit, follow along, or glad to have you. If not, I'll see you next time. But let's quickly do the black and white edit as is customary for the weekly edit. So I'm going to go back to the photo library module, workspace. So now I can actually just create a new variant to save time, but in PhotoLab you can also right click on an image. You can then go to copy correction settings and go to the next image and paste correction settings. It's the same image, so I'm going to say paste all, and now that should be identical. So if we down quickly, yeah, okay, perfect. So word of warning, double click, okay, before the word of warning, double click or click on customize, double click to head into the editing workspace. Word of warning, I haven't done a lot of black and white conversions in DxO, so stick with me as I figure this out with you. So traditionally, if we go, what I would do in Lightroom or in etc., I would just desaturate the image. So here we can select the global, or we can go desaturate and then go from there. Oh, why is it? Oh, it's because of the mask, so I can remove that. Or DxO also has a black and white module, Light Capture 1 and Lightroom actually, and Photo 1. It's just on one photo raw. It's located here in the color / black and white rendering module. Surprise, surprise. So I'm going to click on black and white. Takes a moment. So now we have a black and white image. Let's just see, I think it's got a slight color cast due to the split toning. Ah, there we go. Okay, so even though the image is converted to black and white, the split toning is still applied, like you would be able to do traditionally back in the film days in the darkroom. So I'm going to switch that off. Now we get nice, more pure blacks and whites. And I'm going to go quickly. No, actually that's fine. This doesn't seem to be having an effect. If we go to the mask, so toggle that off. Yeah. So I'm going to leave the control points, the graduated filter, the color, because I only adjusted the color. That's not really having an effect. So I'm going to select it and delete it quickly. I'm going to close that, and then so like usual, image converted to black and white, but now I want to really crank up the whites and the blacks to create a nice contrasty black and white image. Yeah, to be honest, I don't think this is the best candidate for a black and white, but I like to do it regardless, part of the process. So I'm first gonna go back to here. I think something went wrong with that warning. I'm not going to try and figure it out now. So I'm going to increase the contrast, and then with the tone curve I'm going to really increase the contrast there a bit more. And I think for the black and white, for me the most important part is the rock pools here, because that's the highlight part. Down here in the rocks we're not going to see too much. And I'm going to take down the blacks maybe just a tad. And I think for the black and white edit, that's actually going to be it. I don't want to do too much more there. What I might do, seeing as I'm staring at the images, I might bring the vignette down a little bit more. But like that, I mean, yeah, it's not much else I want to do to the image. So for time-wise, I think for time-wise, let's leave it there. For me, the highlight here is the color edit because of the powerful tools located within DxO PhotoLab. So let's leave it there, shall we? Again, time-wise, I think we're ready again at quite a long edit. Thanks for sticking with me. Hope you enjoyed that. Any questions, drop them in the comments below. And I promise I will keep practicing to keep the video length down. Anyway, as always, it's been a pleasure. I will see you in the next edit.